Most of us like to drink. Often people philosophize about wine, beer, gin, or other high-proof alcohol, and everyone seems to know roughly how to handle it. So do I. However, when I try to radically restrict my consumption for several months, I fail miserably. Why? Why is it so hard not to drink? What do we even know about alcohol? For 3 decades, we have been drinking a little less in Europe. But worldwide, people are starting to drink more and more alcohol. The number of people addicted to alcohol is increasing. There are 140 million worldwide, with around 3 million deaths every year. Why is alcohol still so successful? How is it possible that we hide the dangers of alcohol so well while we are drinking? I love the centuries-old wine culture which I grew up with. There was always a bottle of red wine on the table in the evening at our house, and I liked my daily glasses of wine, which helped me to relax. Many of my friends produce their own wine, just as the farmers here in Sicily.
Ma io normalmente al pranzo un bicchiere, alla sera, alla cena. Poi in compagnia posso eccedere anche 2, però siamo nei limiti. Deve essere inteso come un elixir di vita. Ha un buon profumo, ottimo.
I'm going to embark on a journey to find out why we drink, what alcohol does to us, and why we are exceedingly successful in blocking its dangers. Therefore, I'm going to talk to drinkers, alcohol producers, psychologists, and doctors around the globe.
Alcohol is a wonderfully clever drug. It's quite promiscuous. It's a small molecule, gets in the brain very fast, and it turns on or turns off a whole range of different brain areas. It turns off the areas which give us responsibility, make us worry, make us anxious. So we relax, we feel cheerful. But we also do crazy things, and sometimes we like that. So it has a very broad action in the brain. It improves mood, reduces stress, reduces anxiety in small amounts. But of course, the more you take, you get into problems of intoxication and unsteadiness. It's probably fair to say that every single neuron in the brain, those 200 billion neurons in the brain, they're all affected by alcohol at some point.
David Nutt talks naturally about alcohol being a drug. Do wine growers in this region live in a huge drug cultivation area? Is that possible?
There are people who say, you should never take any drug. But usually those people are taking drugs. They're usually drinking or taking coffee or tea. In fact, there's almost no one in the world that doesn't take a drug. Taking drugs is a very human thing. I think it's, alongside art and music, it's kind of one of the defining features of humanity. The human brain likes to seek out ways of improving itself, and drugs do that.
Then cold beer and good wine are also drugs. But why are they almost never named as such?
Droge wird benutzt, der Begriff, angewandt ausschließlich auf illegale Rauschmittel, wird benutzt auch, um der Alkoholgesellschaft zu versichern, und das tut sie selber, um zu versichern, wir haben kein Drogenproblem, wir trinken nur Alkohol. Das ist doch nur ein kulturell eingeführtes Konsummittel, ein Genussmittel, ein Lebensmittel, ein was auch immer. Aber egal, ob Sie sagen psychoaktive Substanz oder ob Sie sagen Rauschmittel oder ob Sie sagen Droge, das stimmt alles. Objektiv trifft das auf Alkohol wie auf illegale Substanzen zu. Egal, was Sie davon zu Alkohol sagen, Sie erleben sofort einen Sturm der Entrüstung und Ablehnung. weil damit, dass ich andere Substanzen als Drogen negativ stigmatisiere, entlaste ich mich von der möglichen Problematik des Alkoholkonsums.
That means with every sip of beer or wine, we take drugs. But we do not openly admit that. So why do we do that?
Wherever you go, every culture on earth seems to have a way of altering their consciousness. And if they don't do it with drugs, they do it with breathing or exercise. It may have to do with the realization that we're only here for a finite amount of time and what could happen after we die, and wanting to have some access to another dimension of experience.
Du schenkst uns den Wein, die Frucht des Weinstocks und der menschlichen Arbeit. Wir bringen diesen Kelch vor dein Angesicht, damit er uns zum Kelch des Heils werde.
Also Alkohol ist eine Substanz, die in einer Hochleistungsgesellschaft, und in der befinden wir uns ja zum Beispiel dafür sorgt, dass wir nach einem sehr anstrengenden, sehr nervenaufreibenden Arbeitsalltag, dass wir relativ schnell gedämpft werden in einem psychologischen Sinn, also herunterkommen, salopp gesagt. Alkohol hat ja die Eigenschaft, Sie können den Rausch Schicht für Schicht aufziehen. Das heißt, Sie können sich leicht anrauschen. Nur so mit einem Gläschen können Sie sich leicht anrauschen, wenn Sie Alkohol gewöhnt sind. Und Sie können dann aber auch mehr trinken und dann können Sie langsam immer enthemmter werden. Sie können das treiben, bis Sie bewusstlos sind. Schicht für Schicht können Sie so einen Alkoholrausch aufbauen. Und diese kulturelle Fähigkeit wird in Deutschland frühzeitig erlernt und beigebracht, selbstverständlich.
Man geht irgendwo anders in die Kneipe, aber da ist einfach die Hemmung, glaube ich, noch viel größer, sich so aufzuführen, sage ich jetzt mal, oder so aus sich rauszugehen, wo man auch so ein bisschen einen Exzess feiern kann irgendwie.
Und wirklich mal bedeppt zu sein, ein bisschen, und Spaß zu haben, das
und auch in
zählt
dieser
wirklich sehr.
großen Gruppe einfach besoffen zu sein und Spaß zu haben, und das ist einfach okay.
The social setting is even more important in many ways than the drug itself. So if you're drinking alcohol in a romantic, spot where you're having quiet sort of, music, and you're with somebody that you care about, alcohol can serve a purpose of relaxing and sedating. But if you're in a war zone, or you're in like an environment that promotes gangs and violence, alcohol can stimulate the brain to be disinhibited, and people can do very dangerous things. So, alcohol has a very wide range of activity in the brain.
I wouldn't want alcohol to not be a part of football, because it brings people together, that social side of things, and everybody goes to the pub, they see their friends, it's like you see your tribe of people, and you're talking and you're building up this atmosphere and this hype and this feeling before the game. And I think that the two just kind of go well together. It can be used to really emphasize certain experiences and that sort of camaraderie with this perfect marriage of, yeah, it is a ritual. It's people going, you start at a certain time, first pint of the day on a match day. I remember being 14 at my friend, she had a house party and there was, quite a few of us there, all having the odd little drink, alcopop or, lightweight stuff really. But I remember taking my first sip and that feeling, the feeling of the warmth and going through my body and feeling a sort of confidence that I hadn't really felt before as well, and an energy, and I thought, this is me, I like this. And even on that first time I drank way more than everybody else and kind of got myself into a little bit of I was drunk, and that kind of stayed, as we grew older, me and my friends, 15, 16, 17, you go to these parties. I noticed that I was the one that was really in a mess and, in blackout mode. So I would do all these things and say all these things and I wouldn't know, I would have no recollection. Go on.
Humans have been drinking alcohol for a long period of time, demonstrably for 10,000 years. Only since the industrialization of its production has consumption increased dramatically. Suddenly, alcohol was permanently and constantly available. Today, annual sales of the global alcohol market are $1,300 billion and rising. What influence does this industry have on our consumption? Under the requested global operating corporations, only Calsberg is willing to talk to us.
This is the best time ever to be in the beer industry, and I don't say that glibly or as a corporate man. I mean that. I'm not a brewer, I'm a drinker. I enjoy beer, and there's more beer available than ever before to consumers, more choices, and I think that choice will continue. You will see people taking their repertoires, expanding. The numbers of different beers that they try will expand in different occasions, and you will see that revolution sweeping across the world. Consumer buying power is growing. Consumers' desire to experiment and try new things is expanding very fast. And the whole digital revolution in these markets also enables us to reach millions of consumers. You would be insane not to look at the opportunities in India and China. I, as a global person working at Calsberg, I spend a lot of my time looking at these markets, working with the teams there. We've got really strong management teams in these markets, and there's great growth. We've recently run a small event in Beijing, and we reached over 123 million consumers through our social media platform on one event.
Corporations spend billions of dollars annually worldwide for their alcohol marketing. It is a gigantic advertising machine, and Calsberg is no exception.
So it was this room we had all the Liverpool hops in. These 4 tables, full of hops from all the way down, all up through, past the light, because hops grows really fast every day. So we had put big screens up from here, 1.5 meter up, all the way down to the end, down and up again. What we played with games in the last 25 years of the Liverpool games, including Premier League games, Champions League games, to try to influence the plants, how they're growing, and try to build in this Liverpool spirit in our hop cones, which we'll harvest later on. And we used those for the beer production, which we then released or gave away to the Liverpool fans.
In the UK, we have seen evidence to show that children and young people are very heavily exposed to alcohol marketing messages, so much so that they develop brand loyalty and identity. For example, a recent study showed that UK children in primary school were more able to identify brands of major alcohol companies than they were brands of ice cream and chocolate biscuits, which really is a very sad state of affairs, but it just goes to show how ubiquitous alcohol marketing is and how alcohol marketing is present in every public space that children are in. We often see alcohol promotions that include messages that overly sexualize women or include hypermasculine messages that can entrench gender stereotypes. And we also see an awful lot of alcohol promotion online and on social media sites. And this is certainly a space where children and young people are occupying. And it's also a space that is incredibly unregulated, where more subversive marketing practices take place.
Wir trinken nicht ausschließlich deshalb Alkohol, weil wir Werbung sehen. Auf der anderen Seite können wir im internationalen Vergleich sehr gut beobachten, was geschieht, wenn Alkohol besonders preiswert oder besonders teuer ist. Was geschieht, wenn Alkohol beworben werden darf oder wenn er nicht beworben wird. Was geschieht, wenn Alkohol rund um die Uhr, wie in Deutschland, an jeder Ecke, Tankstelle verkauft wird. Und was geschieht, wenn das nicht der Fall ist. Und da können wir ganz deutlich davon ausgehen, dass wir, wenn wir in Deutschland etwa einen reinen Alkoholkonsum von rund 10 Litern pro Kopf und Jahr haben, dass ein nennenswerter Anteil im Bereich 3-4 Liter, ganz sicher, darauf zurückgeht, dass wir hier besonders günstige Umstände für den Alkoholkonsum haben.
10 liters of pure alcohol. In other words, about 200 liters of beer, 85 liters of wine, or 25 liters of whiskey. This quantity per capita presents the Central European average. Scandinavia is below this average, and it is even considerably lower in countries like Italy. This gap is due to climatic and cultural reasons. In Scandinavia, due to state regulation.
There is very strong and robust international evidence to show that restrictions on the affordability, availability and promotion of alcohol will make a major significant contribution to reducing harms in a society. Now, these 3 measures have been listed by the World Health Organization as best buy policies that governments should adopt. Now, a major obstacle to progress in this area is the activities of the alcohol industry, who obviously have a very vested interest in trying to encourage sales and encourage consumption of their products.
Wenn man mich heute fragt, meine Freundin zu sagen, wow, warst über 3 Jahre schon, bist du trocken und wie machst du das? Nein, ich könnte das nie und so, da sage ich, mir geht's gut, weil es mir nicht schlecht geht. Ich habe nicht durch die Abstinenz die Sachen im Leben entdeckt, die mein Leben so viel schöner machen würden oder ausgeglichener oder lebenswerter, wie das viele andere, die Bücher über Alkohol oder über ihre eigene Alkoholgeschichte schreiben, die sagen, wow, seit ich nicht mehr trinke, habe ich überhaupt erst entdeckt, wie schön dieses Leben ist und was weiß ich, die Farben und die Gerüche und alles ist viel, viel schöner und ganz anders. Sage ich, nein. Solange ich nicht alkoholkrank war, war mein Leben mit Alkohol viel, viel schöner als jetzt ohne Alkohol. Überhaupt keine Frage. Ich bin nicht gegen Alkohol, weil ich habe ja immerhin 30 Jahre lang davon sehr profitiert, sowohl genussmäßig als auch stimmungsmäßig, als auch als Doping. Und es hat mir nicht geschadet. Ich habe keine Leberschäden, habe gar nichts. Die Frage, warum 10, 12, 15% der Bevölkerung die Kontrolle darüber verlieren und wirklich schwere Säufer werden, das ist ein anderes Terrain. Das hängt nicht vom Alkohol ab. Das ist nicht der Alkohol als Teufel oder als Droge, sondern das ist unsere psychische und vielleicht auch ein bisschen kulturelle, soziale Dimension, die nicht gelernt hat oder nicht imstande ist, im richtigen Moment zu verhindern, dass man alkoholkrank wird.
We start off with cocktails, that's classy, and that's how we want to be sure. But what cocktails? White Russian? Like porn star Sex martini. On the beach? Espresso martini? No. No. Stay away from beer until the end of the night. Stay away from like Calsberg and cider because like that's just going to make you go. Let's do a Jaeger bomb. You have one drink and you do the shots as the side drinks. You have the shots as like the side. It's like you have a starter. The starter's like the cocktail. I don't watch any anime at all this year. I'm in love with Harry Redknapp. Yeah. I always feel older than I actually am. I feel like I was 14, I was like I'm 24 now.
And how old are you?
I'm 18.
Have you actually been out in town before?
Yeah, I went out literally I went out on Wednesday and then I went out on Saturday.
Everyone would say, oh, Sarah again, drunk again. And I guess people used to find it kind of funny, and it was to an extent. As time went by, it wasn't funny anymore, and I was really struggling with it, and I started to think, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just drink like everybody else? Because I would go out with every intention sometimes of just having 1 or 2 drinks, and I'd see my friends do that, and they'd go, we're just going to have 2 beers, 2 glasses of wine, and then we'll go home. But I might go with them for that, 2 drinks later, off they go, and I'm saying, I'm not going home. I'll stay out because I wanted more.
So what happens when you take a drink of alcohol? It goes down your mouth, into your stomach, into the blood, into the brain. And in the brain, it starts to work on a system in the brain called the GABA system. This is the brain's main calming neurotransmitter. Alcohol calms the brain, which is why you feel relaxed, why you feel sociable, why anxiety goes down. Either as a result of that or through actions on other transmitters, it does some other things. It can release dopamine. Dopamine is the get-up-and-go transmitter. That's why some people get very animated and excited when they drink, because the dopamine is released. It can also release endorphins, which is why alcohol deadens pain. It possibly also releases serotonin, which is a sort of feel-good neurotransmitter. So alcohol has a range of effects when its levels are rising in the brain. But if you drink more and more, then it starts to interact with another system in the brain, which is called the glutamate system. And glutamate is what keeps you awake, but alcohol blocks that. And eventually, you will go to sleep, when your alcohol levels rise, and then eventually you go into a state of anesthesia, and then eventually you'll die, because if you block glutamate too much, you stop breathing.
Man muss sagen, ich war mein Leben lang immer ein Spiegeltrinker. Das heißt, ich habe nicht den Rausch gesucht, sondern das ständige, leichte Animiertsein durch Alkohol. Wobei man sagen muss, der Alkohol kann natürlich unheimlich viel und hat verschiedenste Phasen und Stufen, selbst an einem Trinktag, wenn man so will, und ist verschieden einsetzbar. Also es kann ein bisschen beleben und aufpuschen, es kann bei Stress beruhigen, es kann beim Schreiben von längeren Texten und beim Schneiden im Schneideraum von Filmbeiträgen kann es irgendwie die Sache runder machen und ein bisschen entspannen. Weil mir die soziale Anerkennung und die Verwirklichung in meiner Arbeit so wichtig war es ganz eindeutig, dass ich versucht habe, nie zu riskieren, dass der Alkohol könnte meine Arbeit in irgendeiner Weise herabmindern, beeinflussen. Aber das hat sich so gesteigert, bis irgendwann einmal ich mir bewusst worden bin, ich habe das nicht mehr ganz im Griff. Die Außenwelt, meine Kollegen, meine Mitmenschen oder sowas, die haben das nicht mitbekommen oder auch nicht, weil ich nicht allein war. Ich war umgeben von Menschen, die so ein bisschen an der Grenze vom Genusstrinker zum Risikotrinker. Ich war ein echter Risikotrinker. Da ist es dann schon auch vorgekommen, dass ich mehrmals in der Woche am Abend vor dem Schlafengehen, um mich zu beruhigen und um schlafen gehen zu können, allein ein Fläschchen geputzt habe.
Ja, worum geht man in der Bar? Also trinken kann man auch alleine zu Hause, aber das will man ja wahrscheinlich nicht immer. Ist in erster Linie schon eine soziale Veranstaltung. Ja, würde ich sagen. Eigentlich sollte es sowas sein wie ein Hafen, wo man, egal wo man ist, wo man anlegen kann sozusagen und weiß, dass man mehr oder weniger erstmal in Sicherheit ist und der Rest der Welt nicht mit reinkommt. Ja, und dann muss man halt aufpassen auf die Leute. Also sich drum kümmern. Für viele ist es erstmal was zum Runterkommen und dann wieder sich irgendwo anders hinschießen. So das Genusstrinken gibt es eigentlich wenig. Also mit Alkohol umzugehen, so dass es ein bisschen mehr Sinn gibt, ist nicht so einfach. Das ist ja nicht wirklich ein Rausch, wenn du dich einfach abschießt oder dann letztendlich ausknipst. Ein Rausch ist ja was anderes. Rausch ist ja schon ein anderer Bewusstseinszustand, wo man eben aus sich raustritt, wenn es klappt. Ein echter Rausch ist eigentlich was man alleine am besten hinkriegt oder in einer kleinen Runde. Weil jeder natürlich auch unterschiedlich darauf reagiert, auf Alkohol. Also Alkohol ist ja so wie die meisten Drogen wahrscheinlich ursprünglich mal auch vor allem in einem spirituellen oder religiösen Zusammenhang wichtig gewesen. Früher waren es einfach religiöse Zeremonien, wo man sich dann gemeinsam irgendwo hinschießt, wo es aber ziemlich geregelt war, wer was und wie viel trinkt. Das ist natürlich heute nicht mehr so.
I think what it was with me was when I started drinking alcohol, I realised that my head, all the stresses, all the things that were going on in my head, anxieties, fears, worries, anything negative in my head, you have a drink and you forget, you know? It's party time. In your head, everything that's bothering you becomes small and irrelevant, and you just want to keep that feeling of not caring, not having anything to worry about. And the more you have that, the more you want to keep it. So you keep drinking more. And that was me. Once I had a drop and I feel like different. I want to chase that feeling. I want as much of that as I possibly can. I would stay out with whoever. I would make friends or acquaintances to enable me to stay out and continue drinking.
About 10 years ago, I decided to analyze the harms of different drugs using a new scale I developed, which basically looks at every single harm a drug can do. It turns out there are 16 different ways in which a drug can do you harm. There are 9 harms to the user, and they range from killing you when you first drink it, to damaging your body or to making you dependent. And then there are 7 harms that drugs do to society. What popped out was that alcohol was the most harmful drug in the United Kingdom. A lot of people say, well, that's ridiculous. We went back and we got a group of European experts, 20 countries, 30 experts, redid the whole thing, came out with the same result. Across the whole of Europe, alcohol is the most harmful drug. And the reason it's the most harmful drug is because the harms of alcohol to other people, to society, are massive, massive compared with any other drug. They cause traffic accidents. They're responsible for a lot of domestic abuse, child sexual abuse, etc. Also huge healthcare costs, huge policing costs. When I started telling politicians that actually drug policy should be focusing on alcohol, government got very upset. Because the alcohol industry, of course, is a hugely powerful industry. It influences politicians consistently, repeatedly behind the scenes. And in fact, that's why I got sacked as government chief advisor. I basically said that alcohol was the most harmful drug and we should be focusing on that.
The production of alcoholic beverages is deeply rooted in many parts of Europe. In every European capital, as well as in Brussels, powerful lobbying associations represent the interests of the alcohol producers.
The wine sector, it's an enormous agricultural market. In terms of economy, it's the first agri-food export in value of the European Union. So we send 11.3 billion euros of wine was exported in 2017. Outside the European Union, and this provides a positive trade balance of almost 9 billion euros. So we export a lot, we don't import a lot. 3 million people are working directly in the production of wine. We used to say it's an enormous pillar for the agri-economy of the European Union. You are in China, or you are in Brazil, or you are in Nigeria, and people buying a wine is not just buying a product, it's buying the image of the product behind. It's a product which is elegant, which is combined with food, which is fine. So all of these elements have been transmitted.
Wine is what makes people people. Because creative people never drank water. They only drink wine. And wine is just, that was business for many people. But wine is about having a good time. Drinking wine.
And sharing wine.
Singing songs.
One of the most
writing poetry.
Is
having
sharing
sex.
the wine and the love of affection and true connection with other people is what it's all about.
Glory, glory, hallelujah.
Wie Wir repräsentieren ungefähr 1 Million Jobs in Europa im direkten Produktions- und Verkaufsbereich. Natürlich indirekt auch viele andere positive wirtschaftliche Impulse im Gaststättenbereich, Hotel- und Gaststättenbereich und im Tourismusbereich. Letztes Jahr haben wir 11 Milliarden Euro Spirituosen an Wert exportiert. Damit stehen wir neben dem Wein an der Spitze von den europäischen Lebensmittelexporten. Das ist also ein sehr wertvoller Sektor, oder wie der Landwirtschaftskommissar hier in Brüssel sagt, wir sind eines der Kronjuwelen im Exportsegment Lebensmittel.
To find out more about the specific export machine of the European alcohol industry, my journey takes me to Nigeria, one of the growth markets in global alcohol business.
For the beer industry, Africa is really one of the most promising places on earth. The continent is rising. Many countries, the economy is doing better than let's say 15, 20 years ago. There are some middle classes that are rising. There are more and more people who consider themselves to be middle class, and they have some spending money. According to the latest numbers, for every beer sold in Africa, the profit is almost 50% higher than in the rest of the world. One of the main reasons Africa is so profitable for Heineken is that there is little competition. You have 3 big global players. Those are AB InBev, Heineken and Diageo. And among them, they have almost a complete market.
Obviously, Africa is to the interest of the alcohol industry because nobody's checking what they do, and the market is growing. A country like Nigeria is probably close to 200 million people right now. In terms of just commercial interest, this is the place to be.
Many people think that Heineken is only Heineken, but they really succeeded in creating local brands that are very strong, like Star here, or you even have a few brands that are a little bit cheaper.
Even though the abstention rate here is more than 50%, in, I would say, most countries, maybe all countries in the continent, except maybe South Africa. But if you now take out those who drink and you take a look at how much they consume, we see that we are quite competitive, if not even superior to many countries in other parts of the world. So that is obviously the problem. When people drink here, they drink to get drunk.
This one, they used to take it when rain is falling. So they take this one, that rain will disappear immediately. So it's good for body. It's gin. It's called, this chassis is gin.
In Nigeria, as in many other African countries, there are no age restrictions or other restrictions on the sale of alcohol. Since the 1960s, per capita consumption has doubled.
One of my interviews I had was with a former CEO of Heineken in Nigeria. He's called Festus Odimegwu. One of the things he told me was that Heineken launched what was called a hotspot scheme. 500 bars were declared hotspots, and you have to know that there's a myth in many African countries that stout beer is actually good for your sexual performances. Many drinkers believe that. So Guinness has benefited from that since a long time. So what they did, they hired a large group of prostitutes, around 2,000 to 2,500, to promote the beer.
I would be careful in using the word prostitutes. I would say ladies in general were used. The customers who have come to the bar, they are also encouraged to buy Legend Extra Stout. After taking 3 or 4 bottles, they get high. They can pick on any of the ladies who are on duty, hire your room for 1 hour. They go into the room, enjoy themselves, come back to the stage. The lady comes back to the stage. The man too may come back to the stage, have another bottle or 2 bottles, pick another girl, and the lady too can pick another man, and the girls are paid. They are paid for the service. That is what they do anyway. They sell themselves to men. So for them too, it will boost their market. It's a win-win situation. And for me, that calls morals into question. I mean, it's not something that I will encourage.
This was in the past. What's still happening is you have promotion women.
If you have to work with Heineken, you would have to be curvy, but not fat. Because most times they use premium girls that are outspoken and that can convince and that are bold enough. You can be as pretty as you want to, and you're not really bold enough to actually confront or probably talk to a customer about the brand. The customers treat you like you're a prostitute. They could touch you, they could touch your butts, they could touch your body, or they could say some things that look at how sweet you are, probably try to say some kind of sexual words to you and all of that, and they could actually try to abuse you as well. If you think about the pain and you really need the money, you just have to take your eyes off and someone will clean your eyes and go back out there and face your job again.
Promotion women are hired by Heineken in 13 African countries. And since I have revealed all the bad behavior that they're often victim of, Heineken says it has now stopped in some of the African countries where this takes place. They won't tell me in which countries they have stopped, so it's difficult to control if they're really keeping their word.
Even after multiple interview requests, Heineken is not willing to comment on the events in Africa.
Heineken's story in Africa is pretty representative for the way alcohol industry is conducting business in Africa. From what I've seen, from what I've observed, from what I've read, I really see it as a case study.
Anheuser-Busch InBev, the largest global brewery group based in the US and Belgium, refuses to allow us to film in their tents at the Oktoberfest in Munich. They own several hundred brands: Budweiser, Corona, Stella Artois, but also brands like Beck's and Löwenbräu in Germany. Why does the industry so stubbornly reject communication?
Alcohol and health is the big issue. We are very afraid. We really think that some organizations, or there is a push from some part of the society that wants to demonize alcoholic beverage. If we are not able to defend the right place of a moderate consumption of wine within a healthy lifestyle in our society, poof. In 5 or 10 years, we will see a completely different environment for wine production.
Wir haben in Deutschland die selbstgestellte Aufgabe der Bundespolitik, Gesundheitsziele zu formulieren. Und eins der Gesundheitsziele hieß Alkoholkonsum reduzieren. Der Prozess ging über mehrere Jahre und wurde inoffiziell massiv beeinflusst von der Alkoholindustrie. Die entsprechenden Dokumente sind offengelegt worden. Von einer Alkoholindustrie, die versucht hat, sowohl einzelne Maßnahmen zu beeinflussen, vor allem zu verhindern, die sogar versucht hat, die Definition des Zieles zu beeinflussen. Also Alkoholkonsum reduzieren sollte überhaupt gar kein Ziel sein. Eine Industrie, die offiziell immer wieder erklärt hat, etwa der Deutsche Brauerbund immer wieder erklärt hat, wir sind für jede Art von Alkoholprävention zu haben, da machen wir mit und das machen wir auch selber, solange sie nicht den Umsatz reduziert. Das hat letztlich dazu geführt, dass dieses Gesundheitsziel Alkoholkonsum reduzieren in Deutschland überhaupt nicht zu Ende diskutiert worden, geschweige denn verabschiedet worden ist. Die Arbeit daran ist eingestellt worden.
The drinks industry has learnt from the mistakes that the tobacco industry made. The tobacco industry lied about the addictiveness of tobacco, was exposed, and then was essentially had its science kind of completely undermined. The drinks industry doesn't say that. It says, of course alcohol is dangerous, but you've got to drink responsibly. And I'm thinking, well, isn't the whole point of drinking is to lose responsibility? How many people think, oh my goodness, I'm losing responsibility, I've got to stop drinking. By that time, you've already drunk. So they're very clever in that they don't deny the harms, they just say it's something you have to put up with and it's your fault for drinking irresponsibly.
We are conscious of the risk of abuse of wine, of any alcoholic beverage, and we know that the molecule of alcohol is addictive. We know people who has been with alcoholism. We know it's a reality. We cannot close our eyes, but we think that integrated into a normal lifestyle in the wine culture, this risk of getting addicted is minimized to a near relevant.
Momentan haben wir ungefähr 100 Projekte am Laufen, die eben verschiedene Aspekte zum verantwortungsvollen Konsum behandeln. Das geht entweder über Awareness-Kampagnen zum Thema Drink Driving oder Schulungen von Bartendern oder Schulungen von Supermarktangestellten, eben nicht an Minderjährige zu verkaufen oder eben Kunden, die schon zu viel getrunken haben, eben nicht noch weitere Produkte zu verkaufen.
In the UK, analysis has shown that 68%, so 2/3 of alcohol industry profits, are due to consumers drinking above the recommended low-risk alcohol guidelines. Therefore, if all UK drinkers were to heed the UK government's advice on drinking to lower their risk of health consequences, UK alcohol industry would lose approximately £13 billion each year.
Wichtig ist die Alkoholprävention der Alkoholindustrie für Präventionsexperten vor allem aus einem Grund, weil sie uns zeigt, welche Prävention nicht funktioniert. Alkoholprävention der Industrie ist dazu da, nicht zu funktionieren, aber gut auszusehen im Bemühen. Darum werden ihre Ergebnisse in aller Regel auch nicht evaluiert.
I was part of a research team which analysed more than 3,000 alcohol industry corporate social responsibility initiatives. And we found that the overwhelming majority of initiatives were not based on any evidence of effectiveness, did not employ good, robust evaluation techniques to measure their success and impact. And really, all of this material is branded. I think the majority of these initiatives are simply extensions of marketing and could be seen as stakeholder marketing practices, whereby major multinational alcohol companies are able to win favour and demonstrate to politicians that they are doing good and spending money doing good, when really they're protecting their profits and making sure that no proper evidence-based public health measures are introduced.
vulnerable young woman on my own, and I've been fortunate, but a lot worse things could have happened because not everybody's a good person, and sometimes people will prey on the fact that, it's a young person, that's a young lady that's had too much to drink, or men, or whatever it is. And I started to notice I was getting myself into more and more of these unsavoury, unfavourable positions. And for so many years, my family, I have 2 sisters, a good mum, a good dad, and they used to break their heart every time I would go out because they wouldn't know if I was going to come home. That was the nature of my drinking, particularly towards the end. I would go out and I wouldn't come home for 4 days. My own friends wouldn't know where I was, my phone would be off, and my own little sister one day, and this will always, always, always stick with me, had said that she'd gone to the field by my house with my dad because they were looking for my body.
We're leaving your shoes because Ellie walk, Ellie can't walk, Ellie will have to walk. Ellie's going to have to get her feet up. There's a pole, We're off on an adventure. We love you, Dara. No, it's just stop. Malone, Gemma, stop. Have you been in Malone? I love Malone. Can you go take the gas up? Yeah, what's going on? A bunch of peas.
In my head, I still thought, I'm not an alcoholic. I know I've got a problem, but I was just trying to figure out what it was because there's this stigma and there's this stereotype of somebody who is an alcoholic or is a problem drinker. And I had that stereotype in my mind that because I was 24 and because I, had a roof over my head and I had a job and clinging onto my job, I was looking for differences. I thought, I can't be an alcoholic, I'm not. I worked in a little shop at the time, and there was a lady who always came into the shop and we would have a little chat. She was called Annalisa, and she was lovely and glamorous and, well-spoken and very calming person. I just always felt a connection with her. And I wasn't well enough to be in work, but I forced myself to go in because I needed to go into work. And, but I was in a mess. I had the shakes. I mentally was really scatty and frightened and anxious and depressed. I was not in a good mental space at all. And this lady who came in, she came into the shop, and I remember thinking, I'm so glad to see this lady. I feel very, she's calming. And she came up to the desk with her things at the end of the till to pay and said, how are you? And I said, I'm not very well. I'm really scared. I don't know what to do. I think I've got a problem. I need to get to AA. And I was like, whoa, what made me say that? Because I've never, ever felt like that before. And then this lady who is so glamorous and well-spoken and the good clothes and the handbag and everything says to me, I've been in recovery for 6 years. If you want to take my number and we can chat and maybe get to a meeting together, then, So I did, I took her number, and because I saw her and I thought, you know what, you don't look like a bad person, and you're telling me that you don't drink and you've turned it around. So that was enough for me to go, okay, let's see what this is about.
Wenn man, so wie ich, sowieso schon seit frühester Jugend ein tendenziell depressiver Mensch ist, kann man das im Moment zudecken durch viele Aktivitäten, sprich Arbeit und auch Alkohol. Aber à la longue verstärkt es, amplifiziert es diese Depression, weil der Alkohol natürlich eine Substanz ist, die Depressionen fördert. Depressionogener Stoff, sagt man. Und von dort ist es dann vom Risikotrinker zum alkoholkranken Trinker geworden. Das war so eine Verzahnung und eine Kette von 3-4 Jahren, wo man permanent unter großem psychischen Stress und großen Herausforderungen ist. Etliche Schicksalsschläge, Krankheitsgeschichten, Todesfälle. Es ist so wie eine schiefe Ebene. Dieser Tiefgang in der Depression, der dann dazu führt, dass man im Grunde auch gar keine große Lust mehr hat, irgendwas zu machen, bis zu dem, dass man sich fragt, wozu lebe ich eigentlich? Trennung von der Frau und alles kommt dann dazu.
Bitte kommen Sie mit mir, Sie kennen den Weg. Ja. Wir wissen leider nicht, wann der Zeitpunkt da ist, dass man alkoholkrank ist. Ich würde sehr viel dafür geben, einem Menschen sagen zu können, Sie können jetzt bis zum 16. Jänner noch trinken und ab dann müssen Sie aufpassen, dann lassen Sie es besser, weil ab dem 17. oder 18. Jänner sind Sie dann alkoholkrank. Das geht leider nicht. Aber wir wissen, dass bestimmte Menschen einfach eine höhere Chance haben, diesen Schritt in die Sucht zu gehen. Und das sind nicht Persönlichkeitsfaktoren, was wir lange Zeit gedacht haben. Wir wissen heute, dass es keine Suchtpersönlichkeit im Sinne einer Prädisposition zur Suchterkrankung gibt, also die uns erklärt, warum jemand suchtkrank wird. Aber es sind ganz andere Faktoren, die eine Rolle spielen, vor allem der sehr hohe Alkoholkonsum, der regelmäßige Alkoholkonsum und vor allem der Alkoholkonsum aufgrund der Wirkung. Also dass man nicht jetzt aus Genuss trinkt, zum Essen etwas dazu trinkt zum Beispiel, sondern dass man ihn trinkt, um eben eine bestimmte psychische Wirkung zu erzielen. Und es gibt dann einen zweiten Mechanismus, der diese Fatalität noch verstärkt, und das ist die sogenannte Toleranzentwicklung. Das heißt, ich brauche immer mehr Alkohol, um die gleiche Wirkung zu bekommen. Und das ist schon mehr oder weniger die Eintrittskarte in die Alkoholkrankheit.
Im Unterschied zum ersten Mal, wo ich mir gesagt habe, okay, ich lasse mich behandeln und dann werden wir schon sehen, habe ich diesmal gewusst, wenn ich da reingehe, dann mit dem Willen, mit der Absicht, es zu schaffen, dass ich ohne Alkohol leben kann. Das ist ja das Schwierigste, dieser Gedanke daran zu sagen, nie wieder Alkohol, nie. Wenn es ein ganzes Leben so ein zentraler Doping, Begleitstoff, Genussvermittler und so weiter war, plus die soziale Geschichte. Trinken ist der Inbegriff des sich etwas Gutes tun. Beim Feiern, wenn man sich Freude macht und so weiter.
Alkohol ist ja eine Substanz, die quasi alle Körpersysteme schädigt. Zuvorderst natürlich im Verdauungstrakt, Leberschädigung, Schädigung der Bauchspeicheldrüse, Magen-Darm-Trakt, aber auch das Herz-Kreislauf-System, die Haut und natürlich das Nervensystem, sowohl das zentrale, also das Gehirn, wie auch die peripheren Nerven werden geschädigt, bis hin zur Knochenschädigung, zum toxischen Knochenödem. Also es gibt praktisch keinen Körperteil, der nicht durch Alkohol, wenn man ihn hochdosiert zu sich nimmt, geschädigt wird.
Die WHO hat darauf hingewiesen, dass 200 Krankheiten durch Alkohol entstehen oder schlechter werden. Krebs ist eine wichtige Folgeerkrankung von zu viel Alkohol. Die Krebse sind in der Mundhöhle, im Rachen, im Kehlkopf, der Speiseröhre. Aber es sind noch 2 weitere Krebse, die sehr häufig sind. Sie wissen vielleicht, dass das Dickdarmkarzinom eines der häufigsten Krebse in Deutschland und Europa ist, und Alkohol verstärkt das Auftreten von Dickdarm- und Enddarmkrebs. Und das zweite ist der Brustkrebs. Der Brustkrebs bei der Frau gehört zur häufigsten Krebsform bei der Frau überhaupt, und Alkohol verstärkt das. Junge Mädchen, die mit 13, 14, 15, 16 Jahren anfangen, Alkohol zu trinken, das tun sie, haben später im Leben, 20, 30 Jahre später, ein deutlich erhöhtes Risiko, Brustkrebs zu entwickeln. Wenn man gesund ist und nicht Kind eines Alkoholabhängigen ist und auch keine Krankheit hat, die durch Alkohol schlechter wird, dann kann man tolerieren als Mann so ungefähr einen Alkoholbetrag, der einem Viertel-Liter Wein entspricht, und bei der Frau die Hälfte. Frauen sind sehr viel empfindlicher gegenüber Alkohol aus bestimmten verschiedenen Gründen. Ganz genau weiß man den Grund nicht, aber man diskutiert bestimmte Gründe. Das sind so die Grenzwerte, wo wir sagen, wenn wir uns daran halten, dann sind wir im risikoarmen Bereich. Wir sind nicht im risikofreien Bereich, aber wir sind im risikoarmen Bereich.
In the EU, a total of 23 million people are alcohol dependent. Illegal drugs are only a fraction of this amount. These numbers have remained relatively stable for several years. For men, they are declining. For women, however, there are permanent growth rates. Alcohol is more easily available for women today, and it has become part of emancipation.
Unter dem Strich müssen wir sagen, wir haben ein Alkoholproblem in Deutschland insgesamt. Fast alle Menschen haben das. Der durchschnittliche Alkoholkonsum in Deutschland ist viel, viel zu hoch. Diese besagten 10 Liter reiner Alkohol pro Kopf und Jahr. Pro Kopf und Jahr heißt, jedes Baby ist da drin und jeder 105-Jährige ist da drin. Diese 10 Liter Alkoholkonsum pro Kopf und Jahr können Sie nicht gesundheitsverträglich konsumieren. Das geht nicht. Die Menge ist derart hoch, dass die Alkoholprobleme die gesamte Gesellschaft durchziehen. Warum verhält sich der Staat so alkoholförderlich, wenn doch sehr geringe Einnahmen sehr hohen Ausgaben gegenüberstehen? De facto gesagt, Ausgaben, Kosten durch Alkohol ungefähr 10-mal so hoch wie die Alkoholsteuereinnahmen. Das heißt, die Steuereinnahmen liegen im geringen einstelligen Milliardenbereich und die Kosten im zweistelligen Milliardenbereich, 20, 30 Milliarden mindestens. In der Regel wird 40 Milliarden angegeben. Der wesentliche Grund für diesen scheinbaren Widerspruch ist aber der, dass die Einnahmen in die öffentlichen Hände fließen. All die Steuereinnahmen gehen in die öffentlichen Hände. Die Ausgaben werden aber bestritten erstmal von den Betroffenen, ihren Angehörigen, Familien und so weiter, von den Krankenkassen und von der Rentenversicherung. Jeder Krankenversicherte zahlt dafür das Alkoholproblem, auch wenn er selber keins hat, aber zahlt für das Alkoholproblem der anderen Versicherten, aber nicht der Staat.
The losses are in the long term. The tax benefits are immediate. If you change the availability of alcohol, then you lose tax revenue within days. So politicians are prepared to sacrifice long-term health for short-term financial gains.
I spent 20 years of my life dealing a drug that wrecks lives. Everyone goes to a bar to start their party off. So when you're working behind the bar, you're starting people's parties. And what other way to start people's parties than going, here's a round of shots, or let's all have a shot together. Yeah, I mean, I know sometimes it's ruined my life by, going out. There's a good 3 or 4 years of my life that I don't remember very well. From working hard, partying hard, working hard, partying hard, and just doing that 7 days a week. And I know that I've done that to other people's lives. And yeah, I mean, we are legalized drug dealers. What more can you say about that? The government licenses us to sell alcohol, to sell the most addictive drug in the world to people, and takes profit from it. It's a hard thing to say that eventually, being deep and philosophical about it, I've probably ruined a lot of people's lives. but I've probably given them a really great time while I'm ruining their lives.
One of my researchers was actually in Parliament looking round because one of his colleagues was working there. And he took him to a party in Parliament on one of the big terraces overlooking the Thames. And it was a free party. Diageo were giving free drinks to anyone that was there. And he said it was amazing. I stood there and I watched MPs and their assistants drinking. There were several editors of national newspapers, and they were all drunk. My student, he said to his friend, he said, so what is this? Is this the Christmas party? Thinking it was once a year. And he said, no, they do that every 2 weeks. Diageo have a free party every 2 weeks in Parliament. You can drink as much as you like for free. And who's going to oppose the drinks industry when you've got your noses in the trough every fortnight?
Diageo is a London-based multinational alcohol company and one of the largest producers of spirits in the world. Diageo is also very strong in Africa, for example, with Guinness beer. There is a system in our society concerning the blind spot, which blanks out the harmful side of alcohol.
So this place now, this holds some memories for me, but not necessarily the nicest of memories. These cobbled streets here, I remember on my 18th birthday, I came to Liverpool with a few of my friends, and absolutely, your 18th birthday, people always get drunk when they're 18, it's your rite of passage and everything. And the night had such high expectations, I was really looking forward to coming out here. And of course, it all went very downhill. The amount of times I must have ended up face down on the cobbles here, walking in some heels that I couldn't walk in, cut knees, crying, tears, arguments with friends, So coming back here now, it feels, I'm a different person. It's like that girl is dead. And, I won't say she's dead, I'd say she's asleep. And we have to try very, very hard not to wake her up. But that's what comes back to me when I'm here. And I look at that girl with a great deal of sympathy and sadness. And I'm just so grateful that that's not my life anymore. People say to me still now, oh, so you've not drank for 2.5 years, 3 years, so you could probably have 1 or 2. And I say, no. Because if I gave myself a drink, little Sarah would wake up and be back big and as bad as ever before. So it's about learning to live a life where I don't have alcohol anymore, because I know where that would take me, and it'd take me back to the ground. So I'm not doing it anymore.
So that's the $64,000 question. What is better than dope? And if you can find something that really feeds your need for excitement or fantasy or relaxation, but in a socially redeeming or acceptable way, then you have something better than dope. What I discovered in the research at Bellevue Psychiatric Hospital, the drug of choice is harmonious with your characteristic way of reducing stress. That's why people choose drugs. If it fits in how you cope, it's like a hand in a glove. And so that gets us into the idea of that people are not getting so much addicted to drugs, but addicted to styles of coping and self-induced changes in brain chemistry. You can do it with drugs, you can do it with gambling, you can do it with sex, you can do it with crime, you can do it with cults. So there's a lot of different ways you can change the chemistry of your brain. So we have the 3 beacons of human compulsion are arousal, relaxation, and fantasy. And you can have it with drugs, or you can have it with activities. Once you have that realization, then you start thinking about Why not orchestrate a social movement where people can have natural ways of changing the chemistry of their brain and come to positive feeling states that are beneficial to the individual and the society? And I became really involved in promoting that idea.
I would like to get to know the influence of Harvey Milkman's ideas as a solution approach in 2 projects. The first journey leads me to Colorado in the USA.
What we do in Natural Highs, it's a leadership program, it's an education program. So we want to teach young people and adults that you can understand yourself and you can help your friends understand themselves, and there's tools that you can do to support yourself in a healthier way.
If you want to know how a drug like alcohol works, you have to understand how our emotional system works, because it's happening in the same systems. When you feel a sense of love and connection, it's probably serotonin, okay? So then the serotonin gets released, and then what happens next? Where does it go next?
Gets reabsorbed.
Yes. On the other side are serotonin receptors, and the moment the serotonin clicks into the receptor, it creates a new electrical impulse, and that is what we feel as a feeling like love.
What?
Isn't that crazy?
Yes.
Did you ever know that before?
No.
Okay. Wouldn't that be important to learn?
Yes.
Yes, I agree with you. Take a moment, close your eyes, and do a body check-in. Do a body check-in, and especially see if you feel any stress or any anxiety or any kind of challenging feelings. Just check it. You can study each drug and figure out which neurotransmitter is actually getting manipulated by this drug. So in Natural Highs, we say, well, if you're drawn towards a particular drug, you have what we call a favorite neurotransmitter. Right? So if you're drawn to cocaine, your favorite neurotransmitter is probably dopamine. If you're drawn towards alcohol, your favorite neurotransmitter system is probably GABA. Do you want to step here? Yeah. Okay. And once you know that, you can study the particular aspects of how to move this neurotransmitter. I mean, even down specifically to what food would I have to eat to produce more of that neurotransmitter. A lot of these neurotransmitters are also moved by certain activities. Go, Sammy! Go, Sammy! We try to create experiences where kids have the experience that I can actually move this neurotransmitter on my own. I already have everything inside of me that I need. Drugs are just copying these precious chemicals that make us feel good. Yeah.
Crazy, totally crazy. Yeah, everything looks sharper.
Yes, yes. It's like you're mobilizing your own DMT.
Oh.
You know? Don't stop when you feel tired. Okay, keep going until I say stop. What we know now, what happens in terms of brain development between the age of 12 and 25, it's very clear that any use of substances will set up patterns that will affect somebody for the rest of their lives. The longer somebody delays any use of alcohol or any other drug, the better it will be in terms of their mental health. And then, if you're up for it, we can do a little GABA experiment. So GABA gets released naturally when we feel comfortable in our own skin, and it gets released through touch and feeling safe. So what you can do, if you'd like, you can actually find a way in this web that we have right now. We can create a big kind of like spider web. And if you feel like it, you can actually find a way of touching another person if that feels comfortable to you. So if you don't want to do it, you stay in your own space.
Now, you'd be lying to people if you said that natural highs are the same as drug highs. And of course, the reason that people take drugs is because it's so powerful and it is so long-lasting But the brain is not really wired for that. The brain is wired for moments of ecstasy and extended pleasure. Extended ecstasy is neurologically impossible, so people will cause all kinds of problems because the brain resists this like intense sort of dose of dopamine in the middle part of the brain called the nucleus accumbens, and that's the pleasure center. But all of these activities that we're talking about, art, music, dance, sports, they also deliver dopamine to the nucleus accumbens of the brain, so people do experience pleasure.
More than 20 years ago, a prevention model was started in Iceland, where the main aim is nothing less than changing the drinking habits of a whole nation permanently by directly approaching juveniles.
We had quite a problem with specifically alcohol use, binge drinking.
It was quite usual that you started drinking like 13 years old.
You know, alcohol use, tobacco use, hashish use, it was going up and had been going up for some years.
It was really important that we had this sense of emergency, that we had to do something.
I just realized you're all the sons of alcoholics. And I'm like, yeah, okay.
We had strong leaders and all the political parties stepped behind it and said, yeah, this is what we are going to do.
That thing that used to be so Iceland to drink till you just die, you know. But you don't see that anymore. Thank God.
The project was academically accompanied by the University of Reykjavik. From there, all possible participants were included.
Researchers, policymakers, and practitioners working with children and adolescents came together and decided to try out a new approach. First and foremost, it was evidence-based. The questionnaires measure risk and protective factors in the lives of young people. So this is the one that we will be carrying out next week in all of the schools for 16 to 20 years old. We learned these sort of key risk and protective factors, and we started trying to change them.
Since the project began, Iceland cities have been investing up to 10% of their household budgets in recreational activities for young people, not only in sports, but also in music, dance, and creativity.
The idea was, can we try creating healthy communities, like communities that give a lot of opportunities for meaningful days, for fun in life, and through that affect the behavior of the group. So it was not focused on changing each individual mindset, but on changing the community, and through that, affecting the behavior of adolescents.
The Icelanders said, why don't we give them natural highs before they even start having problems with drugs? Why don't we institute a social model where people don't even have to get so far into this from the beginning?
In my opinion, the most important thing for coaching children in Iceland is to make good, strong individuals who will later on participate in sports or just be good members of society. So we put emphasis on getting everybody involved. We want everybody to be able to play, no matter how good they are when they are young. We give everybody the same chance, and we don't only train them in the sport technique, we also want to train their mental side. Like over 90% of every child in Iceland at some point is playing sports for an official club. We have the opportunity to influence these children in so many good ways. Og hvað til dæmis hollt hægt að borða? Epli, banana, fisk, broccoli. Most teenagers eventually try alcohol. But in sports, we try to delay it as long as possible. And I think it's somehow just involved in the team's culture.
we saw that the family is a protective factor, and there are 3 elements within the family that seem to be most important. Emotional support, believing that you can get support from your parents if you need. Positive monitoring. Do you know where your adolescents are on a Saturday night? Do you know with whom they are? And the 3rd key protective factor was the quantity of time spent together, which was kind of not very popular in Iceland at the time, because we like to believe that we didn't have to spend too much time with them. We like to believe in this idea of quality time, where you only have to spend 1 hour per weekend with your kid, but it's not that simple. The more time we spend with our kids, the better. The best thing about this is that it's for everyone. So it's this idea of you need a village to bring up a child, so making it easier for parents to be parents. Because if this is the rule in all the houses, you don't have to argue for why she needs to come home at 8 o'clock. Because it says on the refrigerator, right? Yeah. The idea behind the parental walks, groups of parents walking around the neighborhoods, is to strengthening the community, seeing to it that nobody is outside drunk late in the night. But of course, one of the key ingredients of this very good equation is for the parents to get to know each other.
It's a popular place here to people to come, and because it's open for a long time. And here is an ice cream store and maybe center for the neighborhood here, likewise like shopping and like that. So we walk around here and we look, are they inside maybe too young, and help them to remember to go home.
In Iceland, advertising and marketing for alcohol is completely banned, and the sale of alcohol is only possible in their own state-run stores. This multi-layered prevention model is extremely successful. Regular consumption of alcohol among 15-year-olds dropped from 42% in 1998 to only 5% today. The Iceland model shows that it lies in the hands of governments to reduce the population's alcohol consumption. Yes, they even have the obligation to do so. As with any drug, much of our dealings with alcohol is socially conditioned.
I've been working for the last 20 years in the whole area of drug policy. And I started working for the British government back in 2000. And to my horror, I discovered that there was no definition of what a drug is. And then I started looking at the UN conventions and the WHO regulations on controlled drugs, and I realized there is no definition of what a drug is. And that, of course, is a huge problem. And that is one of the reasons why alcohol is considered not a drug, and drugs like heroin or cocaine are considered drugs, because the decision is not made by pharmacologists like me, it's made by politicians.
It only becomes clear to me during my journey what it means, that alcohol is not a pure stimulant, but a drug. Since then, I'm stunned by the frivolity with which most of us, myself included, just drink.
Es gibt 100 Regeln, ich habe sie alle probiert. Ja? Man sagt, einen Tag in der Woche nichts trinken, eine Woche im Monat nichts trinken und einen Monat gar nicht. Wenn man das alles zusammennimmt, trinkt man praktisch nicht einmal ein halbes Jahr im Jahr. Hätte ich das geschafft, hätte ich nie ein Problem gehabt. Jemand, der imstande ist, jede Woche zu sagen, heute trinke ich keinen Tropfen und in jedem Monat sagt, eine Woche trinke ich keinen Tropfen und dann noch am ganzen Monat dranhängt, der ist nicht süchtig.
Ragazzi, qua un altro concetto c'è, vai. Salute di tutti quanti e anche gli ospiti presenti, ok?
I actually blamed my drinking on various different things. I blamed it on the fact that I was gay and afraid to tell people. And then I told people and it didn't stop me drinking. I thought it was, you know, from traumatic things in my childhood and things like that. But actually I had a very privileged upbringing compared to a lot of people. I find that that's a common thread with alcoholics, is that we're all very sensitive, very vulnerable people. So alcohol was our way of coping in the big bad world. When we take away the alcohol, we have to learn how to manage our emotions and manage our vulnerabilities without reaching for a bottle of beer or alcohol. So that's what I'm learning to do on a daily basis now, you know, bettering myself, getting myself stronger so that I've got a defense built up against alcohol, if you like.